Hello everybody. Hello dear guest participants, presenters. Hello audience. I am welcoming you in the Museum of Architecture and Design in Ljubljana, Slovenia, on the symposium, international symposium, named Clothing as an Art Object. Well, lately there are globally huge discussions over when fashion is art or vice versa. So I'm looking forward to hear your presentations, your views on art in fashion. I think we will start with the first presenter, which is Jana Maneva, Faculty of Art and Design, European University, Skopje, North Macedonia. Her presentation title is Art is Art, Fashion is Fashion, Fashion is Art. She's actually not here. She will be online with us.
I definitely didn't want to think about the commercial aspect of fashion design. I really just wanted to be free and try to push these things that I find difficult to express. Fashion as a medium, there is just so many things to explore with technique, but most importantly for me, just working with the body, constructing concepts around the body, which I find very crucial to my work. With the bubbles, I had to learn how to construct and craft latex clothing, and I really like the material of latex. There's just so many things to explore within it. It's the bubble that goes into the dress and then to this string that goes above and back to the bubble again. So you're always sort of placed in the middle of the bubble. Wherever you go, the bubble moves with your body. So it's like this symbiotic relationship between the garment and your body. But also you have to be very careful with where you move, because the bubble then again is so fragile. It follows you wherever you go. It will burst if you don't nurture it and take care of it. The bubbles are inspired by my very early childhood memories, where I'm from, how I've become the person that I am today, and sort of trying to understand that idea of when the self develops. What I've tried to capture is this mist that I've seen in these memories, that idea of being within the memory and within your own mind and visualizing the mind from the outside. So the bubble is this metaphor for our consciousness, really. Everything is kind of improvised today, and the light is piercing through the bubbles randomly, and whatever happens, happens. It is about showing them fully inflated and in a proper scale and with movement, but then again, not constructing too many things around it. I don't like when things are constructed to be something. Also, what my work conceptually is a lot about is that sort of idea of not knowing. I want to continue to explore the unknown.
Hello, good morning. Everything is okay? Can you hear me?
We do. Mrs. Jana?
Okay. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Yes.
Welcome to the symposium at Museum of Architecture. So I already announced
Thank you very much.
The word is yours.
I can hear you, sorry.
Oh, so you, okay. I'm welcoming you.
Can I start? It's okay?
Do you hear me now? Mrs. Jana?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
now
I'm
it's
welcoming you at the symposium
okay.
Clothing as an Art Object in a Museum of Architecture and Design in Ljubljana. I already announced your speech, so the word is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank you to Professor Tanja Devetak, because I think it's a very important today to speak about very interesting topic. Of course, greetings to all professors and colleagues from the other university. And here I will start with my presentation. 1 second, I must share this. Share. And you see the full screen now? It's okay?
Yeah, it's okay, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. The title of my research is The Art is Art, Fashion is Fashion, Fashion is Art. Because first of all, I want to say that I'm a visual artist, but also I'm a fashion designer. And I will present you today one, how to say, moment of the aim of this research was to emphasize the connection and influence between art and fashion. The connection between art and fashion is expressed in different ways, from the collaboration that bring them together. Works are created that are rare, but their value is great and they are often highly desired. And of course, the main goal is to show how art can be incorporated into a fashion. The very important thing is that there is a relationship between fashion and art has been closely related since the end of the 18th century. They are more talked about in fashion circles than in art. This my research continue with analyze the aspect of Macedonian folklore, who is my favorite inspiration. Because in Macedonian folklore, we have a specific folk costume, a national costume, who is with the different Balkan textile ornamentation, which is absolutely my inspiration. And of course, it's great challenge for me to represent Macedonian fashion designer who work in this process, creating contemporary fashion collection. The connection between the traditional Macedonian national costume, fashion, and art represent an artistic, first of all, an artistic concept that must contain the aspect of art, of course, and artistic, all the artistic practice. Historically, fashion has rarely been on the same level as the painting, music, sculpture, and architecture. I'm not sure that it's today like this. And I will speak a little about the artist Marina Abramovic, who is my favorite. One can consider her thinking, which is part of her work in the way she engaged the viewer and asked him to sit quietly across from here and look at other for as long as the viewer wants to watch and hear performance or exhibition. I mean, that's just like in fashion. The person wearing the design is talking to the designer and the audience. This is some picture from this excellent performance. The artist is present with her ex-boyfriend Ulaj. And this is me in Belgrade with my husband. We was to see retrospective exhibition of Marina Abramovic in Belgrade. I think was, yes, 2019. And I will continue with some short historical, very important decade. And one of the collaboration that stand out really and is considered among the first to combine art with fashion is between surrealistic artist painter Salvador Dali and Elsa Schiaparelli. In 1937, designed a white evening dress, is very famous, with the painted lobster, where the dress is considered one of the most famous design of the time. Of course, they continue with the famous lobster telephones and shoe hats. Okay, we will continue with the collaboration with great course artists in 1913. This designer created artistic question that blurred the boundaries between fashion and art. Fashion pieces created with inspiration from art can be very valuable and luxury and sought after by collector. Paul Poiret, very famous French fashion designer, collaborated with Chanel with Elsa Schiaparelli, and we have that circle with collaboration, whose designer is very strongly influenced by avant-garde styles. We will speak shortly about French designer Yves Saint Laurent. The inspiration from art, from the Mondrian collection, we was inspired by the abstract painting of the Dutch artist Piet Mondrian. And of course, we know always this famous collection. It features simple geometric shapes in primary colors. This artistic work had a strong also influence on fashion long after his death. And this is a photo from my personal archive, because I was in Paris almost 3 months this year. This was very interesting because I was there in that museum. It really was very interesting to see directly what's going to happen in that perfect museum. Okay, this is the collection. Influenced by the Surrealist and Dada movements, of course, fashion designer Paco Rabanne in 1966 broke convention by rejecting traditional textile and created a collection of 12 designs using discs, glue, wires, rings, and pillars to join sculptural dresses. And this collection is present in the house at the Manhattan Museum. Also, we can mention the collaboration between Philip Tracy and lobster hats for Isabella Blow and Lady Gaga. This is some visual details. Also, Paco Rabanne, Spring Summer 22. This is collection who is inspired from Victor Vasarely. It's an excellent collection. Who was in the rooftop of Monaco Center of Congress, really very interesting place. And of course, we must mention the Japanese fashion stage, who is like a protest production of Issey Miyake, the first fashion designer to be featured on the front cover of Art Forum magazine in 1982. Before introducing Make, who's integrated here a conceptual art line. Okay, this is early fashion of Issey Miyake. And this is very important point of view, that the process of professional work and presentation of art in museum is work with the curator, with challenging interpretative choice, where they are documenting a particular period, culture, or creator, or highlighting a theme or element. Exhibition of dress in museum and gallery also must be practice the same approach, working with the curator, starting with the documentation also like art curator, inspiration from the particular period, culture, analyzing the theme of element, inspiration, etc. Despite the proliferation of museum retrospective for fashionistas beginning in 1983 with Yves Saint Laurent at the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art, and more recently in 2010, Valentino and the Queensland Art Gallery, it's interesting to note the number of designers who do not identify as artists. Coco Chanel, Yves Saint Laurent, Kawakubo, Vivienne Westwood, etc. all aligned with Karl Lagerfeld when he keeps art is art, fashion is fashion, and I will continue fashion is art. So this is only communication between Yves Saint Laurent and Picasso. Contemporary designers such as Alexander McQueen, Galliano, Hussein Chalan appear to deploy art as a marketing strategy, which the museum industry is seeking to embrace. For each new collection thinking thematically, Hussein Chalan, Kawakubo. Yohji Yamamoto, Margiela increasingly emphasized the conceptual aspect in fashion. The conversion of conceptual art with fashion in the runway show and the museum exhibition become equally important venues for presenting fashion. So this is Alexander McQueen in Victoria Albert Museum. And I forgot to say something about the short video. At the beginning was a really young fashion designer who worked on this stage creating
Mrs.
fashion
Jana,
like an art object.
Do you hear me?
I
would just like to remind you for the timing.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, I will continue with New Wave in Fashion, one very interesting exhibition. And of course, my connection, my inspiration between traditional Macedonian national costume, fashion and art represent an artistic concept that must contain the aspect of art and artistic practice. Macedonian folk costume is very big inspiration for me. So this is the last of my exhibition. He was in National Gallery in Skopje. I had the exhibition there, retrospective exhibition. This part was dedicated to my interest in textile, who was inspired from the Macedonian folklore and photo print. Okay, this is short information why I use inspiration and some kind of history of Macedonian folklore. Macedonian folklore was my PhD, so this is my field to research and to make contemporary fashion design. Okay. Only to say a couple of words about Macedonian fashion began to develop more intensively in the early 80s of the last century, with the first attempts to present several Macedonian textile brands like Tetex or Stibo Otex, who was really working with a large capacity with 1,000 employees at each and with impressive export to the ex-Yugoslav and European market. And I'll be finished with some my project redesign of textile design, inspiration from textile ornamentation. And of course, left is bridal shirt from region Skopska Crna Gora, and right is my redesigned textile. And only to say that in Macedonia also have other fashion designer who incorporate transformation of national folklore dress in the contemporary collection. Georgi Zdravev, Nikola Spasovski, Nošpal, Eftimo, Bulevski Bule, etc., etc. Thank you very much. I think that the time is over.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Jana Maneva-Čupovska. As you know, I have few questions for you.
Okay.
So, the first one would be, fashion was transformed radically over centuries. What were the major changes and transformation in describing fashion as art?
Mm-hmm. Okay, very interesting question. I think the connection between art and fashion is very crucial. The communication between these same gives a different approach, different point of view, and this artistic approach in fashion and the commercial approach in relation to the mass market, for example, of sales, ratio is singled out. The way of thinking is completely different. The way of concept research is completely different. The realization of collection is different. I think that this aspect is very important because they create completely new shapes and thinking about the fashion.
Tell me, Dr. Jana Maneva Čuposka, how influential is fashion as art for our cultural identities, for example?
Excuse me, can you repeat again?
Yes, how influential is fashion as art for our cultural identities?
Also, I think that it's very important to know that, for example, I, like a visual artist, like a painter, very often I work with the curator. And I think that this professional approach gives us completely something different in fashion. There are very few examples where we could say that the collection was created as communication and influence between curator and fashion design. Maybe this is good approach to start to make a completely new point of view when we work with the curator, but not only for the exhibition, but I think that is good, like approach.
Okay, just the last question. So, as I understand you, you can easily say that at least some of the fashion designers can easily be described as an artist. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, I can. So, as I understand you so far, you can probably easily say that some of the fashion designers can be also described as artists as well, like Alexander McQueen or Hussein Chalayan, for example.
Yes, absolutely. For me, they are artists. But they work in some fashion they feel that must think about with artistic concepts. And this, for me, is really, I would like to emphasize really this important question. Not every designer can work fashion collection of this type of artistic concepts. Because I think that to make this collection, it must have intellectual capacity.
Yes.
Like a designer.
Okay.
And this is a crucial detail because, of course, the same for the intellectual capacity of the visual artist. So I think we must emphasize this detail.
Well, Professor Dr. Jana Maneva Čuposka, thank you very much for your time, for your presentation, and for your answers. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And I hope to see you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's continue with the second guest presenter, which is Associate Professor Tanja Devetak, Faculty of Design, Independent Higher Education Institution and Center for Design Research, Ljubljana, Slovenia. with a presentation titled Interweaving of Art in Slovenian Fashion. Tanja, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. So good morning to you all. Nice to see you here. Well, I will be talking about the influence of art that has happened in the Slovenian fashion throughout many decades, and how it influenced on the different aspects of fashion happening and is still going on here in Slovenia. Of course, as it happened also globally, fashion was not recognized as being art in many decades until the beginning of the 1980s, when appeared, as it was mentioned before, also Isemjake on important art magazine, and also started to appear fashion in the respected museums and galleries, as alongside with so-called real art. Of course, similar things were happening also in Slovenia, and we can also recognize that, nevertheless, that there were different systems at the time, as it was in case of in the 80s, and Yves Saint Laurent was having its own retrospective in New York exhibition. Also in Slovenia were happening very similar things. And regarding the, of course, regarding the his own in 60s of Yves Saint Laurent inspiration that he was taking from for his collection from the art, something very similar was happening at the time in Slovenia. So I'm just showing you some of the slides and clothings from the present Slovenian fashion and art scene that is dealing with the different aspects of art development in fashion. So first real connection between the art and interweaving between art and fashion in Slovenia happened in the late 60s, at the beginning of the 70s, and therefore I was mentioning Yves Saint Laurent and his epic collections that emerged at the end of the 60s. Approximately at the same time, there was a textile company in Slovenia called Prebold that asked three prominent artists, painters at that time. Two of them were even later on academics, Jana Mršnik and Andrej Jemec, and Jaki, the third one, and they developed for this company different textile patterns that took some of the signs, symbols, some of the art or artistic elements into designing these patterns for this textile company. Out of those textiles, then some of the respectful fashion designers at that time from Slovenia, Eva Paulin and Vesna Gabarčik, and from Croatia, from Zagreb, Richard Gumzej, developed and designed from this material also clothing forms, and Gorenjska oblečila from Krajin produced those clothings. As you can see, this is, and it was called, the collection was called Painter's Styles, how appropriate for that time. The Painter's Style was at the beginning of 70s, and as you can see, it is really the thing that the industry at that time in Slovenia did realize how important it is for the creativity of industry itself. It's important to invite artists to be part of this industrial production. Those are some samples of those clothing in the beginning of the 70s, and they are really comparable with the global trends at that time. Later on, in the late 80s, another very strong influence and connection and co-working project emerged in Dyal in Nova Gorica, on the other side of Slovenia, near the Italian border, where Claudio Tuta, the artist and painter, young at that time, was invited by the director of the company to develop one collection together with a leading fashion designer at the company, Vida Slokar. And as you can see, he really took, Claudio Tuta, the designer and the artist, took the symbols, the signs from his paintings. Here at the slide is the painting at the back of the model. And he took some of those elements and put not just as an element as a textile pattern on designs, but he also designed the forms, the clothing forms, which is now a level up on this collaboration, not just patterns, but also the forms, the clothing forms itself. The whole collection was limited edition, up to 15 samples of each model, but it was sold out, so rarely any sample of this collection is still preserved. In the 80s, as it was case all over the world, a very strong subculture emerged, and in these subculture movements, textiles and clothing and fashion was also very strongly embedded. Many artists were developing their own expression in the media of clothing and in the media of textile. But among them were also called the group Linije Sile, which were in between of fashion and art. So they were also doing the performances within the clothing and textile media, but as well they were trying also to be part of the fashion movement and fashion presentations. At that time, there were also other names presenting at the fashion shows, doing different approaches. One of them was also Ksenia Baraga, who were at the beginning developing hand-knitted clothing forms. Of course, she was, all of those fashion artists were not trained and educated in the fashion field, but maybe even due to that reason, they were developing clothing as an art objects, and they were really experimenting in this area. Out of this subculture movement in the 80s, a strong independent studios emerged at the beginning of the 90s, when also the transition of the social system has happened. Those independent new studios that that were established at that time took from this subculture certain elements, certain aspects of the fashion into their commercially oriented brands. For example, Acultura introduced fashion shows more as a fashion performances, and some of the the names at that time as directors like Primož Šekar or Tomáš Trucel were directing those performances, and they were performances, not just the fashion shows. Urška and Tomáš Draž, which were working under their label of knitting studio Draž, were strongly connected with the not just within their work in developing different aspects of art approaches to the fashion design, but they also were aware of importance of the fashion photography, and they work with different fashion photographers in more artistic way of presenting the image photos in fashion. One of them is Peter Kelich, Alexandra White, just to name some of them. Of course, later on in the beginning of this century, the new fashion designers, already educated in the fashion, but started to explore new at the moment for the fashion, for the Slovene fashion, new questions that were really considering them strongly and deeply, and were embedded in their artistic approach to fashion design, which is identity, the questions of identity. And of course, we were moving back from the industrial production to the product, to the handmade design. This is the work of Nika Ravnik, which is one of this group young designers at that time that, of course, approach to the fashion design, again, as it is in art, as a unique form of working with the handmade production. And then we come to a very young artist, Lea Culeto, who is not trained as a fashion designer but as an artist, and she's really exploring textiles and fashion forms or clothing forms in the sense of identity of women in the contemporary world, and many questions arise around her works. She exhibits regularly her work and really exploring textile material as a medium of artistic expression and evaluation of the fashion design. Of course, also commercial fashion brands like Cliché understand that fashion is not just showing and being present at the market as some kind of commercial commodity, but fashion is also very embedded in other artistic and cultural activities, and one of them is, of course, also again fashion photography, which is very, very important in the work. Coming to the end, of course, in the late decades, these hybrid fashion designers or artists emerge, which are in one hand are fashion designers, and in one hand they're costume designers. This is one example of Urška and Tomáš Draž, which are costume designers as well for one of corporations in the theater. And Jelena Proković, which is of course a hybrid in itself, also being awarded as a costume designers with a national award, but also very, very strongly uses costume design aspects in their fashion design work. And now to conclude, what are the future for the Slovene fashion art scene or interweaving of art in fashion? There are many fashion designers and fashion brands which are, and Draž of course is one of them, which are producing their fashion collections and treating them as art objects. Therefore, those clothing are unique. They are not product design. They are, of course, custom made many times, but they're approaching and treating it as an art object. And I think that Slovenian fashion has a prosperity in that field to be very strongly embedded in the art, fashion, artwork, fashion art, artists, handmade, style, hashtags in the global world fashion market. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanja. So, since it was a lot of Slovenian fashion examples of art in fashion, actually, I'm wondering when exactly we can say that one dress is not just a piece of clothing, but an item of art.
Thank you, Aleš. This is the real question, whether fashion can be art and also. Thank you, Aleš. It started to be a question raised in the early 80s worldwide because it was, as Valerie Steele has once written, that always was fashion treated and clothing was treated as ephemeral, as something trivial, as something like this is just a commodity, economic commodity, we just buy it for the consumerism. But of course, we have to say that every clothing is not an art and every collection is not an art. But there are examples in the fashion scene globally and also in Slovenia that we can call it art. There are fashion designers, they are approaching to the fashion design, to the clothing design, textile design as an artistic approach, not as just the commodity for the consumerism.
So that is what I want to ask you now. Which Slovenian piece can be described not just as a fashion item, but as an item of art in fashion, actually?
But in presentation, I showed and named a few of them, and I can just repeat those names for sure. In the contemporary fashion, I would emphasize Draž, knitting studio Draž, and I would emphasize also Nika Ravnik. I would also emphasize some pieces and samples of Sanja Grčić for Firma, where she's collaborating with the artists to put artistic works directly, printing directly on the clothing forms. But of course,
this is an example of Draž, for example.
Draž also used this collaboration with the photographer Eva Petrić years ago, where they used her photographies and transformed them in the knitting material, which is a little bit harder if you compare with the printing technique. But nevertheless, they are also collaborating with other, for example, taking some other photos and then transforming them into the knitting material. But I would like to emphasize that finding art in fashion or in clothing is not just looking whether there is a collaboration with the artist, but also in the work itself. So why I was naming, for example, Nika Ravnik, because she is producing something which is very much artistic approach embedded in the fashion design. And I think from perspective of Slovenian fashion, contemporary Slovenian fashion, this is something that we can cherish and nourish it in the long term as our own fashion identity.
Well, Nika Ravnik can be a perfect example of this kind of clothing, like art in fashion, and at the same time we can easily wear her clothes. Mm-hmm. This is probably the distinction between commercial labels of fashion and then on the other side artistic, like Hussein Chalayan's projects, which can actually not be wearable.
Yeah, of course, this is the question of wearability and functionality, because always it was always a question whether fashion and clothing can be art due to the fact that, of course, it has to be movable, it has to be, you know, wearable, we have to put it on our bodies and so on. But nevertheless, we, as it is in paintings, we are moving boundaries and we are destroying conventions, and this makes something artistic, something that is creative, something that really makes, that looks beyond, you know, something that was already obvious and known. And this makes also, every painting is not an art. We have to acknowledge also that as it is
where
in
to
fashion.
draw the line, actually,
yes,
what
where
art
to,
is.
Of course, there are theoretical approaches where, of course, some like axioms in mathematics, there are, and we can value according to that. But I think it's also, in fashion, we have to change the thinking about the fashion in overall in the society, that fashion is not just clothing to protect our bodies, to make them prettier, to decorate it, to ornament it, but it has, the clothing can have also a very strong concept, can have a very strong artistic approach, and in the sense of sustainability, we are going much more close to the art, which is one of the kind. There are not many versions of the same, even the graphic art, you know, there are limitations and so on. So if we start to think about fashion from this perspective, I think that this big how to say, the division between the art and fashion is going to be narrowed and coming much more together, and thinking now not just of those both sides, but in general in design. I think that overall there will be just one word, which I think today we will be hearing later on. It's a creativity. Mm-hmm. Creativity, and regardless of the media, but this great creativity that makes human beings human beings.
Professor Tanja Devetak, thank you for your views.
Thank you, Aleš, for questioning.
Welcome. Well, we are getting closer and closer to the coffee break. So, the next guest is Assistant Professor Dr. Marina Kocareva Ranisavljev, Academy of Technical and Art Applied Studies, Belgrade, Serbia, with a speech named Layering, Mapping of Inner Space. Thank you.
The name of my concept is Layering, Mapping of the Inner Space. And we may ask ourselves, what is it that transforms a piece of clothing or a commercial garment into an art object? Or the other way around, what degree of utility is necessary to make art wearable? I have dealt with this topic in different ways for many years in my personal work and professorship as well. Striving to broaden the conventional views of fashion, both in theory and in practice, I've been interpreting the different aspects of clothing, psychosociological, but also the structural and symbolic changes that occur along the line of subject-body clothing. This relationship was particularly examined through the prism of displacement, deconstruction as the cause of a change in meaning and shift from the functional and aesthetic towards the conceptual. This relationship sorry. We could define deconstruction as a permanent process of reviving time, space, and female body, deconstruction of the inner and outer. In my artistic projects, based on a personal topic, my father's white shirts, I explored the special spiritual displacements and the creation of new situations and states of objects and bodies in the environment, provoking sensations from the past, offering an unfamiliar and almost cathartic experience through the creative act. In this way, the white shirt, the unavoidable code in the history of clothing, perseveres in my work not only as a metaphorical mainstay, but also as a special blueprint for a multimedia conceptual statement on a personal and collective history. This project/exhibition, shown in Skopje in 2016, had the same name, and it was for the second time a research of the white shirt, or rather the continuation of dealing with this topic after a long time. The constant in my work has always been the need to place some new lives into another space and time by simultaneous use of multiple media. Oh, something happened. I don't know what. Sorry. I must back. Yes, yeah. The center part, this is exhibition with the name Collective History in Skopje. And the central part of the exhibition space was occupied by an ambient installation called Ringispiel. Various authentic objects like letters, handkerchiefs, photographs, and other memories found in my grandmother's bag were also transposed into exhibition. You can see some example here. And authentic color footage from the 70s of me as a little girl on the carousel projected over several shirts that belonged to my late father. You can see the example. And the symbolic of carousel is often used, and in this case, it represented life itself. Life cycle, we go up and down cyclically, drive and turn for a while, so that at a certain moment we complete our last round and get off it. The white man's shirt became the background, like a painter's canvas, for projections and notes of important moments in a person's life, in this case, scenes from my early childhood unfolding. Establishing continuity has been achieved by going back to the painting, relying on the wider cultural tradition of Balkans, but with the need for deconstruction in the current work as well. I've tried to enter the field of criticism and self-criticism towards the past, aiming to overcome it. In the focus of my artistic and conceptual analysis is the body as a text and the texture of the body. The constant in my work has always been the need to place some new lives into another space and time by simultaneous use of multiple media. And the previously established method of the constructive and symbolic approach to figural representations of woman, but also the space in which she lives, is now more complex, elaborated with new associations. The ambient installation, named Where is the Soul, or the Diary of a Shirt, also emphasizes a pair of opposites, the female and male principle. It was first exhibited in Zagreb as a part of the project Femininology in 2019, and then at the May Saloon in Belgrade 2020, where it won the Grand Prix. The light potential of the paintings, the azure treatment, which leads back to my early paintings, collages, and the use of tracing paper are now enriched by new digital solutions. The lightness and fluidity of the projections correspond to my continuous tendency to observe individual history and the very vague contours of past and present reality. Hence, everything is like an illusion or a dream. And the last project, named Layering, Mapping of the Inner Space, was inspired by a written correspondence among two important female figures in my life, and the second part by a traumatic event. The exhibition was presented in Skopje and Zagreb these years. In my artwork, I am analyzing the meaning and the symbolism of the letter, which nowadays have a completely different digital form. In the second part, the focus is on the misuse of the letters as a form of stalking. And here you can see some examples of this artwork. It's grandma, me on exhibition, and some digital solutions. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Marina Kocareva and Ranisavljev. Now we will continue. Marina will answer my questions in Serbian language and I will summarize it in English. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. I was actually inspired by your t-shirt. That is t-shirt and shirt. That's why I have a white shirt with an important statement of late Vivienne Westwood. So we are not disposable, which is also very sustainable. So the questions would be, so how and when exactly the white shirt became such a popular piece of clothing?
Možemo da kažemo da je bela košulja, ako bi gledali istorijski unazad, negde 50-ih, 60-ih godina bila jedan vrlo, da kažem, poželjan i nosiv odevni predmet.
If we look historically, the white shirt became popular also with these statements in the late 50s or 60s in last century.
U kreacijama Kristijana Diora mi možemo iz perioda i New Looka, znači od 47. godine, da vidimo mnoge i 50. godina i 60-ih filmske dive koje su u tim kreacijama sa gloknastim suknjama uz tu belu košulju koja daje posebnu sofisticiranost i eleganciju, ali i oficijelnost. Tako da...
Marina Ranisavljev, she said that Christian Dior actually with his shirts and then popular movie stars and fashion icons in the 40s, 60s and 50s were wearing these white shirts on a large scale.
Svi imamo možda sliku pred očima i Audrey Hepburn u tim belim košuljama i koliko daje tu neku, upravo sam rekla, sofisticiranost. Međutim, simbolika bele košulje ipak može se reći datira mnogo pre.
She also mentioned Audrey Hepburn as a huge movie star, as we know, that she was wearing this sophisticated white large shirts. But she said that, of course, the influence of the white shirt was created much more before than 50s last century.
Da se osvrnemo na tradiciju, recimo, i našu, da se beba pri rođenju, muško dete, jel, dočekivalo u mušku očevu košulju koja je neka vrsta zaštite. Trebala da bude i neke garancije za njegov zdrav i, da kažem, snažan život.
The white shirt.
Bela košulja, tako je, oca.
She also interestingly mentioned that at the birth of a child, the white shirt was kind of a, as I understood well, a protection to roll a child into this white shirt. It was kind of a tradition.
Možda potpuno intuitivno i mene je inspirisala i u mom stvaralačkom radu, što ste mogli da vidite upravo ovde na ovoj prezentaciji, ali inače košulja kao bela košulja i u nacionalnoj nošnji možda nije bila tog oblika, ali je kao nekakvo donje rublje koje je štitilo telo i bilo neophodan deo.
She also mentioned that the white color and the white shirt and the white dressing was very popular in folk kind of clothing and of underwear for this kind of particular wearing.
I u 19. veku, za vreme viktorijanskog doba, kada muškarac oblači svoju uniformu ozbiljnog, da kažem, muškarca i nosioca glave kuće, jel? Uz to odelo je svakako išla bela košulja, da li je to bio plastron koji je upotpunjavao taj oficijalni izgled ili baš košulja, to je to.
Men from the Victorian period of time were somehow always wearing at least one part in their kind of a layering of garments, and one of the clothes was always a white shirt or something else.
Tako da, eto, uvek su odgovori negde kompleksniji od samih tih i činjenica i pitanja.
And the next question would be, how powerful can actually many statesmen which can face on the t-shirts mostly on the fashion garments actually be? The power of the statesmen like I have, for example, we are not disposable. Does have this a global meaning somehow?
Mislite na belu košulju konkretno ili uopšte na...
Yes, on the white shirt.
Koliko može da, ako sam vas razumela, da odaje tu neku autentičnost i snagu? Pa upravo sam negde i rekla, kad bilo koja prilika koja je nekog značajnog tipa, baš i prilikom nekih mojih prethodnih izlaganja, bela košulja daje taj utisak oficijelnosti, elegancije, sofisticiranosti, tako da u tome i jeste pročišćenost. I sama bela boja koja ima simboliku sama po sebi je nešto što ima tu snagu. Ako krenemo još od Egipćana, bela boja koja je asocirala na čistotu i koja je bila simbol njihove nošnje i načina odevanja, već je to samo dovoljno
Marina Kocareva Ranisavljev said that the white color was very influential for many periods of time. Starting in Egypt, it means kind of purity, cleanliness. And later on, also white dresses or shirts, especially on women, were also a kind of aesthetic and very sophisticated way of clothing.
Upravo su se, kad smo pomenuli Egipćane, oni su se i razlikovali čistotom beline od šarenila istočnjačkog ostalog sveta, tako da je to smatrali su za neku svoju prednost.
The Egyptians were in these white clothes, they differ themselves from the others by the pureness of the white color on their dresses. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hvala.
Hvala vama.
Torej, we managed to have a few more minutes for a coffee, so a coffee break.
Garment which changed its shape during each wear and during performances. And now I will jump over some years of various experiences and will show a quick overview of the main products which were created in the last almost 20 years and have resulted in establishing a brand or an organism named Bela Bela, which means white white. It started with this object, with this element, which is a multifunctional element, a molecule shaped, and can be used as an independent object or can be assembled together to create various or artistic or useful products. Here is one example, which is 1 to infinity room divider. 1 to infinity is the name of the molecule. And the self-assembly modular curtain, which you get flat packed, and then you assemble it by yourself. And you can experiment and discover the element by yourself, and you create your own piece at the end. Here is another model called Bubble, which is the same principle, but another shape, which you can also use the same way. So you can create different useful, functional products, or you can use it to create a more abstract, or we can say maybe artistic spaces, pieces, and so on. And here is an exhibition, Lost in Translation. It was made together with 3 other artists for months of design, during months of design. And here you can see this bubble element puzzled together to create layers in the space that were floating in the space. And among these layers, some garments were also floating. And you could move through these spaces and experience the atmosphere and experience the different compositions from different point of view. And here is a detail of, below you can see the process of assembling the 1 to infinity light created from the first model. And below you can see some details created from the second model, from the bubble model. These are the details of the light. On the left above you can see the outer shape, and on the right you can see how it looks from inside. So there are 2 structures that can be built together. It's the same model, so it can be assembled 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional objects, let's say. This is 1 to infinity light. It's hand assembled, modular light. Can be also floor light. It's assembled from the first module. And the same object, the same product, element, can also be assembled together to create some decorative table products, like a table mat. You can see here, you can get a bouquet of elements, and then you create yourself. This is from felt. Here you can see it on the table, but you can discover the element by yourself. So it can be also Christmas tree decoration or whatever. You can make a bowl out of this. Different things are possible. From the same element, the self-assembly sheep or pillow mat, you get a package of modules, and then you create the sheep yourself, and the sheep can change the moods, as you can see. But you can also create other things. When you don't like the sheep anymore, you can also use the models for something else. This is the ecological package, bubble basket, created also in 2010, and you get a certain amount of bubble modules, and you can use the emballage for the bag that you insert in the final basket. So all the complete is useful. There is nothing to be thrown away. And you can see the instructions on how to assemble the basket on the emballage, which is also a bag. Here is a smaller version of the bubble basket, the same principle. And another product, which is called Coral Twist. It's a spiral cut object. You can use as a coaster, as a mat, or you can unwrap it spirally, the stripe away, and you get a scarf, you get or a jewelry or anything you like. You can also assemble it together to make a table mat, and then when you don't like it anymore, you create something else out of this. This is the cocoons product. Basically, it's a coaster, but you can also discover what function you would like to give to it. You can embroider it by yourself. It comes as a set with thread and instructions. So you can create an artistic piece out of this, or you can create a useful product. It's up to you. Here are two embroidered same products embroidered with different techniques. Here is another project called Micro. Also, it can be artistic, it can be useful. It's up to you what you will create out of this. It can be a coaster, it can be a wall installation. You discover it by yourself, and by putting your body, your hands into the process. You get what you would like to create out of this. So this is the continuum. It's a hand embroidered vase, collapsible. So you get two coasters and an epruvette, and with magnets you put them together, and it can be also put on the wall. And it's also, you can also embroider it, and you make your own object, your own pattern. And here is the lotus brooch, which is also hand embroidered, and you can also embroider it by yourself. So I'm moving a bit back to the body now. So you're a co-creator, and you use it on your body. And another one, also hand embroidered, bubble brooch and pendant, with the same principle, inspired like everything from cells, from body shapes, from body elements. And this is the last one, the ghostly Christmas tree. You can see on the picture. You can now see in the ICA shop window in Ljubljana center. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Jana Mršnik. So let's continue with the questions. So as we can see, your products can be as commercial as artistic. Is that right?
Yes, it depends on how somebody sees them, and I offer them actually a tool which they can which they can discover by themselves. Each user can discover by themselves, and make whatever he wants out of this. So
in your particular case, I wonder how can a selection of textiles influence on a distinction between a piece of an item and an object of art?
Okay. I don't know if it depends on the selection of textiles at all, because I think that textile artwork, especially in contemporary art, can be made of very different textile materials, from very expensive silk to, I don't know, the linen rope. So it's all the question of the content that is put in the project. So I don't think if we have, for example, a it's my perspective, it's very personal.
Of course.
Yes. If we have a purely commercial garment with purely commercial purpose, I don't think it can become an art object only by changing the material. Yes, it will still remain the useful product as it was at the beginning. But I think there is another point of view, maybe, if we talk about the prestigious textile art, or if I compare it, I don't know, with oil paint comparing to acrylic paint. The oil paint is considered to be more prestigious. But so the textile art with silk could be considered more prestigious. But I don't think that it really makes it more convincingly an art piece. I think there are more criteria that have to be met.
But in your case, your work is usable. This is an advantage of your...
Yes.
No matter how commercial or artistic they are all the time usable.
Yes, they are. That's right. They're usable.
So, for your work, for example, different items are exhibited in the exhibition. Is that enough to mark those selected items as art objects?
If it is an art object, I don't think that art gallery will define them as an art object. If we have purely commercial garments, then I don't think that it will become artistic when you will put it in the art gallery. I don't think so, but I think we could see it from different aspects. It can be, there are a lot of artworks existing that use useful garments as a part of bigger artistic concept. Yes. In that case, of course, the garment becomes an element which creates the wider composition, the wider artistic composition. So it is deprived of a function of purely functional object. But if we, I don't know, I always take an example, Japanese artist Kiyaru Shiota, which uses these useful garments and put them in these very big yarn installations, yarn nets, yarn spaces. And of course, these installations are usually made in art galleries. But this installation would still be artwork even if it was put in the shop window.
Out of the galleries.
Out of the galleries.
Artistic places.
Yes. And we have also examples when there is a garment which is made with a purpose to be an artwork. I don't know if, what comes on my mind is the example of Joseph Beuys, who created this felt garment, right? And it seems like a useful product, but it was not meant to be designed as a useful product. It was the reflection of his past experiences, traumatic experiences, which he embodied in this object. And yes, he puts this in the gallery, so I think that in such cases, the gallery and the product together define that it is an art piece. I think that this piece, if it was put, this is my perspective, if it was put in a shop window, wouldn't be considered anymore an art piece. We wouldn't notice that it was an art piece. You know what I mean? So in this case, both together, I think that creates this
And regarding
concept.
to your work, how can a human body participate?
Yes.
In your kind of work.
In my kind of work. Okay. If I go back to my long ago created collection, I don't know if you noticed there was a hand knitted garment, and the body was actually the co-creator. And how it happened? This collection was presented on fashion shows, and on fashion shows which were like dancing performance. But while this creation was worn, the structure was breaking down. Okay, so in each performance, the structure was more broken. So actually the final result, the final design was a result of the garment and the body who was wearing it. And I remember that then when I showed it at the fashion show in Trieste, it was long ago, after these performances, I had to knit them again. So all the process started. Yes. So they were slowly breaking down, and you were observing these structures, how they were changing and what was appearing. And yes. And this is sometimes, it was long ago, we didn't have video, we didn't have digital photos to document all of the process, unfortunately. Yes. And the other project, Lupine, the one that was in the City Gallery, there were, I didn't mention that those layers, the images were not created in Photoshop. It was physically there, transparencies in the space. So the observer was moving through these transparencies and was actually adding the energy and their body to the images, while at the same time trying to find the right perspective for observing these compositions. He was creating, by merging these layers together, he was creating his own garment at the end. Because these were different garments in layers, and if you positioned yourself, I don't know, between the second and the third, you got different compositions of layers and garments and different final result, for example. This is, yes.
Professor Jana Mršnik, thank you.
Thank you, Aleš. And thank you, Tanja, for inviting me. Thank you.
So I think we have more time for another guest presenter before coffee, right? So, Associate Professor Tina Kolenik is next. Academy of Theatre, Radio, Film and Television, University of Ljubljana, with a speech named The Social Production of Power Dressing. Thank you, Tina.
In this presentation, I will briefly describe my art project entitled In the Name of the People, which was exhibited in Gallery Regrisia in Ljubljana in 2022. The project tries to answer the questions of how to construct the dressings of political rulers, primarily the leaders of the state, At first sight, this seems to be very difficult, probably even impossible task. Namely, throughout the human history, rural dress have been characterized by extreme diversity, although they generally reflect the specific nature of class society that their state power represent and reproduce. But regardless of historic variability, my basic point is that power dressing includes costume sworn by persons who are recognized and mainly obeyed as political rulers. And their wielding of the state power is justified, for instance, by the will of gods, natural superiority of the aristocracy, tradition, rule of law, or election victory. Why I used matches? To illustrate as clearly as possible the constitutive role of the ruled multitude in the construction of political power in its possessor, the main material that I used in production of the ruler's clothes were matches. There are several reasons why I choose matches to represent, at least metaphorically, the human beings who recognize, accept only particular persons as their legitimate rulers, and who, moreover, often also admire, adore, love, worship, idolize, and deifize them. Finally, like people, matches have common material, nature, individual characteristic, as they differ in color, size, thickness, length, and origin. Secondly, like humans who enter their jobs already molded, that is subjective and qualified by ideology and generally accustomed obedience, matches are ready-made. Thirdly, like most of the structurally subordinated human sellers of their bodily and mental abilities and competencies, matches are perceived, valued, used, treated as cheap means of various good or bad, social useful, harmful goals. Furthermore, the use of human labor power is determined by those who have public or private economic or financial power over them. Similarly, the use of the matches is determined by those who bought them. Finally, the main characteristic of the matches is that they are bearers of inflammable materials consisting intense potentiality, that is temperature between 1350 and 1440 Celsius degrees. When their heat is properly achieved, it can produce fire, which used constitutive and destructive ways has played extremely important role in human history. In my project, the conserved fire in heads of matches constructing the ruler's dress signalized the possibility of deconstruction of the existing political power. How I made the costume? In realizing my project, I had to procure a sufficient amount of material, about 1 million matches of various colors and length. My friend and I bought them in shops in various Slovenian cities, in foreign countries, and online. The collected matches had to be first sorted according to the common characteristic. Then I combined, assembled, and glued the matches together into recognizable composition, resembling luxurious materials, textures, pattern, headdresses, colors, jewelry, and various symbols of political power. I made the clothes on which I glued the matches from the white fabric, cardboard, Dyal, and transparent foil. I used smaller matches to make the clothes, while the bigger ones were used to make the accompanying scenic backgrounds, including a suitable context. I used matches with burned hands and bodies for both the clothes and backgrounds. For the construction of more complex pieces, I shortened the matches. The implementation of the project started in October 2018, when the first matches arrived from Spain. I worked on the project more or less continuously from 12 to 16 hours a day, during the summer months. Matches were very possessive material as they constantly impelled me to work. In the final phase, my shoulder nerve even inflamed due to repetitive movements. Wearing me all, I had pushed my body into its very limits. After all the clothes accompanying the backgrounds were accomplished, the photo shooting followed. Then I had to imitate rulers' specific characters and states of mind with appropriate facial expressions and body posture. Power dressing may convey a lot of meaning. Construction communicated to members of ruling class, ruled people, political supporter, rivals or enemy, and foreign power or audience. The power of an image underscored by appropriate clothing can be, and indeed often it's intentionally used for the maintenance and strengthening of the real power. Nevertheless, ruler dress may also damage his or her reputation, particularly it is perceived as somehow inadequate for his political role, or it's interpreted as too expensive in the eyes of the political experiencing hard times. As for female rulers, they can either imitate masculine style power dressing or ancient speciality female trumps. For example, their beauty, fertility, mental care, or chastity. I selected 3 queens that clearly had chosen the second opinion. The mysterious Egyptian queen Nefertiti possessed both great beauty and political power. She wore garments in pleated linen, often depicted as being so fine that it became transparent, showing off the divine, voluptuous body, symbolic of fertility. By the way, she had 6 daughters. Guy Julius Caesar. Throughout the human history, politics has been to a great extent mainly the power game played by aristocrats. That is presumably the best sort of the people. They typically try to impress the ruled class and both their enemies and adherents by means of military success, chastity, organization of public festivities, ruthless repression of rebels or dissidents, financing the constructing of sanctuaries, and so on. My project includes Guy Julius Caesar, former Roman emperor, who acquired absolute political power, wealth, prestige, popularity, thanks to his military victories and conquest. That's why I represented him in a military dress with a laurel wreath on his head, a symbol of victory, and not in toga, which was garment par excellence worn solely by citizens while performing civil functions. Elizabeth I. I choose Elizabeth I and Marie Antoinette because they cleverly use magnificent dressing not only to showcase the prestigious wealth and might of England and French kingdoms, but also to cement their personal power and arouse widespread adoration. Both queens were extremely influential fashion icons, namely their self-fashioning was imitated only by courtiers, but also by common people. Marie Antoinette. At the coronation of her husband, Louis XVI, she impressed the audience by her new pouf look, heavily powdered hair, teased high above a forehead and topped with ostrich feathers, which was soon emulated all French society. Marie Antoinette constantly revolutionized the contemporary fashion, although the French Revolution deprived only of political power, but also her life. She still remained the fashion queen of the very end. For ending of her imminent execution, she wore elegant, brand new white chemise to remind the people of the fact that she was guillotined in the name of the people. I represented her by two photographs, separating the head of the rest of the body. Besides, I wore a head replica of a French ship on my hair in order to show that sometimes expressed her political stance by her husband, functioning as kind of miniature theater. In this case, her approval of her husband's support for American rebellion against the British rule. Okay, and then I have Louis XVI. Louis XVI, politics is broad sense encompasses everything people do while they scramble for try to maintain or enlarge it. In narrow sense, however, politics in a short theatrical play performed more or less continuously by influential actors in front of various audience. I choose Louis XIV because his extraordinary, brilliant, opulently decorated court in Versailles was certainly one of the best examples of the political theater in which the Sun King, the prototype of an absolute king, constantly played the most important role, accompanied by aristocrats who were obliged to change their lavish costume several times a day. Okay, and then I have Napoleon Bonaparte. In order to stabilize French society after the revolutionary turmoil, Napoleon brutally ended the rule of the Directory. Like Caesar, his power and popular support were based mainly on a military achievement. Although Napoleon is usually portrayed in his characteristic military uniform, I represented him in the exquisite outfit carefully chosen for his spectacular coronation, as depicted by Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres, namely the fact that he succeeded in self-enforcing himself as the first French emperor could be interpreted as the climax of his otherwise prestigious political career. Sitting Bull. Sitting Bull was included in my project as the Indian chieftain, spiritual, political, and military leader, who symbolized the autochthon tribe resistant against the genocidal colonization of the Northern America. Josip Broz Tito. I chose Josip Broz Tito, the lifelong president of the Socialistic Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and its Communist Party, because he was the ruler symbolic of the anti-fascist, socialist, anti-imperialist, and non-aligned foreign policy. I represented him a military uniform, although he normally wore civil clothes, indeed very elegant ones, for a ruler of the socialistic state representing the working people. Politics always contains an important end, as rule, even easily recognizable theatrically on its actors, not only superiors, but also their subordinators, as the role of both complement and presuppose each other. In that sense, politics essentially an art of persuasion, which includes, if necessary, also manipulation, misunderstanding, or lying. Of course, politics can make something real only if enough people believe in a particular leader and his project, ideas, and values. In principle, everyone can be a king if he managed to persuade enough people that he is really the king and not just an over-ambitious pretender. However, his intention will be probably frustrated if he acknowledges in advance that his claim is based on his endeavor to make the potentially subordinated people believe he's really their king.
Tina, Professor
Yes.
Tina, you just kindly remark.
Yes, okay.
Okay,
I will end with
Thank you very much.
with this picture. Okay?
Okay. Excellent.
Okay?
No.
Yeah, I
Just
can
finish.
end. Oh, okay.
Of course.
Okay, sorry. Since the role of a ruler is based on beliefs of ruled majority, included state official, is not his or her subjective or objective attribute, but a piece of intersubjective or imagined reality. Therefore, it could be suggested that ruler's costume, being the dress of rulers, also basically contains of people beliefs, which although invisible may someone a ruler. Disappearance of these beliefs analyzes also ruler's dress. If someone no more recognized, respected, obeyed, or treated as a ruler, even the most precious crown on his head will not be conceived as an item of a ruler's dress. On the other hand, as long as people believe that someone is really their ruler, the person in question can wear even invisible dress, like in Hans Christian's famous fairy tale, in which courtiers admire emperor's new clothes, because no one wants to admit that he is stupid or incompetent. And when the innocent child finally says that the emperor is fact naked, the ruler still remains the ruler, albeit ashamed one. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you. I mean, Tina. Well, Tina.
Excuse me, I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's good. We all were probably because
Sorry.
your work is definitely art. No
Okay,
doubt
thank you
about
very
it.
much.
For sure. I mean, it was. So, I have two questions for you.
Okay.
Just a sec.
Okay.
How an important political figure becomes an influential fashion icon, as you were speaking about.
Yes, I think the political figure was in the future, and nowadays I think are very influential. For example, if we see the pictures of, I don't know, maybe I will try to find the correct name. Okay, maybe the French president or maybe the American, but I think that the problem is the dress of our contemporary politics is basically very monotonic, I think, in color and in tailoring. But the audience can be like can dress like this figure, and they are very happy in this.
But what actually makes them possible fashion icons? The rulers you mentioned,
Yes.
the modern politicians, for example.
The modern politicians, for example, yeah, maybe because they have a power, because the people want like to be like them. They, as I said, they have a very simple dress. And I think the most important is that they have a power, no? It's the
Are
it's
there
the main
any
point.
distinctions between female or male in this case?
No. Nowadays it's not so important, but in the future we have a big differences between male and female. But if we saw the figure of Louis XIV, he was very special because he wore high heels and big wigs and tailcoat. And this is very feminine, as wrote Harari on his famous book.
And we are getting there in, I mean,
Yes, maybe, yes.
the feminine part of men's dressing.
Maybe.
Okay. What is, by your opinion, what defines the ruler's dress actually?
In the future, I think it was crown, spectre.
In the past, you mean?
In the past, pardon.
Okay,
In the
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
In the past, I think it was the requisite, like crown, spectre, dresses, luxury dresses, and maybe wigs. And nowadays, it is just the position of the politics, because they have power.
But not the fashion actually of the dresses.
The dresses.
In the past, it was all these items of the kings and Caesars were involved in the industry of clothes. But
yes.
nowadays, it's not about that. It's just about.
Yeah, because it is not so about this image. I think it is more about the presence of the presidents, not so about of their outfit. I think because they are a power, and we know that they are politics, and we obey them, as I said on the presentation. Maybe
regarding your work, I'm really wondering. You spent thousands and thousands of hours to create all these excellent pieces, right? It was
yes.
a project of what, 5 years?
4 years, yes. Because
And you did it alone?
Of course, alone, of course. I worked, I said, in summer for 20 to 16 hours a day. And I was really in love in this project and in this material, because it's so interesting because of this color and maybe this potential
danger, possible
danger.
danger.
Yeah, possible danger. But when I have some anecdote from this making these costumes, when I take off the matches from a small ship for headgear for Marie Antoinette, sometimes I saw the fire, and then I put it down, this fire. And this is really extreme conditions for work, but in the other hand, I really like this project.
We do like it.
Thank you very much.
Also, thank you a lot,
Thank you.
Tina Kolenik, for your enthusiasm as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, after this great art, we are finally there. Coffee time. Welcome back. We'll continue and we will finish soon as well. So the last guests from Italy, from its Arcademy, are Tina Gorjanc Safhalter and Lidia Rosa Dyal, from a new, very interesting museum called its Arcademy. And the title is A Point of View from its Arcademy, Museum of Art in Fashion. Please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us here. It's an honor to be here and to present the museum where I, Lidia, and Tina work. Its Arcademy opened just a few months ago in April. Is actually born from 20 years of experience developing its competition, which stands for International Talent Support. And the first edition took place in Trieste in 2002. It was created by Barbara Frankin, who continues to be the president and director of it. More than anything that we can say today, we'd like to show you a video of that encompasses exactly what it is as an event, and we'll show you some of the spaces of Arcademy, our museum. Thank you.
It sounds crazy, 20 years, 2 decades. I mean, I was there almost at the beginning of it.
And then over those 20 years, putting together absolutely indispensable archive of creativity.
It's a fabulous resource for anybody who wants something to do with design or any interest in aesthetic.
It's a place where you know you can find creativity from all over the world.
It's my first time, for sure it's not going to be the last one.
Fashion is a quite difficult field to work in, and to win a prize like that, it really puts you on the map. It boosts your career.
"20 years of creativity, I would say, 20 years of emotions, where we have seen incredible talents, where we have seen a lot of passion, where also we have discovered new languages."
Everyone knows ITS. It's beyond all expectations. It's really exactly what it says on the tin: international talent support.
I come back because it's like a family and it's super inspiring. You know, it's like the new people coming with the full creativity coming from their heart and really putting so much love and energy in everything that they make.
Being consistent for 20 years is something extraordinary.
I think Arcademy, it's a science fiction project. It's something that it's impossible to find nowhere else in Italy, and probably very hard to find anywhere else in Europe, maybe in the world.
Arcademy is what it was for the beginning, what it is now, and what it will be. It's a statement of strategy. It's a reference point for the fashion system.
So it's incredibly important as an archive, as a reflection on 20 years of creativity from young designers. But also it looks to the future because you can predict what's happening next, and it's a reflection of society. I've been genuinely blown away by the quality of what it does.
It was the first door that opened for me professionally, and I think it actually played a very important role in my career, I think, because there was a lot of visibility of who I was, and most importantly, I think the confidence that it gave me.
Okay, thank you. What's in a name? So we called our museum It's Arcademy Museum of Art in Fashion, and not It's Arcademy Museum of Fashion, because very, very much so in the initial process of building the museum, it was clear to us that we wanted to reflect what the collection was, and we couldn't leave art out of this. This space is actually what we call the library, and it's the space where we keep all the portfolios. And it really reflects this concept of art and how it became, from a contest, became a museum. How did we develop our collection? Well, back in 2002, when we had the first event, we didn't know that we would become a museum 20 years along the line. And we realized that what we were receiving was of high value. So every single young designer who sent us their portfolio, who applied to it, we kept that portfolio. We kept it in boxes, and we kept it not because we were hoarders, but because we realized that it had a very high artistic value, and that it was important because it showed a slice of young people's creativity throughout the decades. Sorry. Can't change the slide. Thank you. And the archive grew and grew, and so these boxes that were actually stored in our attic became so full that we desperately needed a place to go and house our collection. In the attic, it was very beautiful, it was very quaint, but it was exposed to boiling temperatures during the summer and freezing cold winters and damp and leaks and seagulls. And finally, when we were able to move into a beautiful new space in the center of Trieste, we could really give its collection the care it needed. So it began with restoring what we could of the outfits that finalists came to Trieste and donated from their collection. Each finalist would donate either an outfit if they were fashion designers, or a jewelry piece or an accessories piece. So the collection was developed over 20 years, and now it's housed in a vault where we can control the temperature, we can control the humidity, and keep everything clean and preserve it for as long as possible. We were very, very lucky in that this journey to become a museum, we shared and collaborated with Olivier Sayard, who is the curator of the first exhibition, and he spent a very long time with us, absorbing its collection, and has made a selection that takes you through the first 20 years of its collection and contemporary art of young designers. I'm going to pass you on to my colleague, Tina, who will tell you a bit more about learning.
Thank you, Lidia. So Lidia and I are part of the learning department of its Arcademy, and I would say the main task that we hold is to deepen our understanding and the experiences of its heritage. So a heritage we have built over the past 20 years. And how we aim to achieve this is by designing tangible, creative interactions that are aimed at different groups of people and that tap into the essence of what our museum is and what our archive is. So we design those experiences to be inclusive, to stimulate a wide range of senses, and essentially to awaken the inner creativity we believe each one of us holds in order to foresee how fashion can be seen as an art object. There is also a branch of our department which is specifically tasked to share more technical know-how, which we have accumulated through pioneering and continuous work of preserving our contemporary fashion collection and all of the materials that are associated with it. This ranges from recycled fabrics to more biotechnical applications, so a very wide range. I would say one of our main vocation is also the promotion of circular learning, which on one end we kind of facilitate by inviting back our amazing list of finalists and help them develop workshops or other sorts of activities through which they share their knowledge, their art, and their craft. And there is another portion of sharing this circular learning, which is probably most appealing to students, which is that our museum almost acts as a time capsule. So part of what is so unique about this exhibition is that audiences can witness works of art that designer did at the end stages of their student life or just before they are entering the workforce. This means that all of the artworks that we could witness there are essentially showcasing a time frame when someone's career has really begun. So how precious is it to see that, to witness items that otherwise would be lost to attics, lost to storage facilities, or even worse, they will be thrown away. So in the spirit of circular learning, I invite you all to become part of our wider ITS network. Thank you for your time and invite you to visit us in Trieste. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I invite you both for the last questions. So after this excellent Tina Kolenik's art, we are facing with its Arcademy another huge potential of creativity, which is actually the main word describing its platform and its Arcademy, its creativity and the vision of Barbara Frankin. So tell me how actually its Arcademy is unique on a global scale.
Partly from what Tina was saying, that what we are collecting are works of art from people who are on the cusp of entering the working world. So it's art pieces that have unadulterated creativity. It's art pieces that often get lost. Portfolios, there isn't a collection of student portfolios, I don't believe, anywhere in the world. And so it is been put into a database so we can search for students who have come from different nations, different schools, different types of creativity. So I think it's very special in that sense.
I mean, to explain to other guests and students here, the word creativity really has a huge potential with its creativity. I mean, its Arcademy and its platform. I mean, one of the contestant a few years ago sent a portfolio in an ice, and it survived. I mean, you should be very creative to maintain your portfolio in ice.
And it was actually very special ice because it was completely transparent. So they sent it as this big ice cube with a little pick, so we had to break it out and leave it in the bath to melt until we could actually extract the portfolio. But we've had cement blocks, we've had balloons, we've had flowers, we've had students arrive on our doorstep to hand in their portfolio.
And you really treat fashion as art, because all these pieces which are taken to the extra consideration and to these places for preservation, you treat them with gloves like art pieces in museums. And I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think what is interesting is also that we are faced with challenges that already existed in the artwork, in the preservation of contemporary materials, right? Because essentially fashion was always linked to textile historically, while here the works of our artists are actually, they're experimenting with a whole range of materials that you couldn't imagine. There's a dress that is integrated, a biomaterial, and so forth. So essentially the archiving and the conservation behind it, it's quite more similar to maybe how artistic pieces are preserved.
So we know that the new exhibition will be from March 2024 on, and the finalists, the finalists for its platform are already announced, and the winners will be announced in March. But can you say, from what you saw, will be faced with some extra designer, extra collection I know that you can't really say.
We can't really say
we can
very
see
much,
some.
yeah.
We can see some photos on.
You'll like it. There'll be
Is
some
there
nice.
anything extraordinary, for example?
That I would say that they're all extraordinary because they've reached the level and they've been selected. More and more we're seeing different unusual materials that look towards sustainability, and that's something that we really are happy to see and grateful. Mm-hmm.
As I know, every contestant, I mean at least a finalist, leaves one piece of a cloth for the Arcademy.
They leave one outfit. Mm-hmm.
One outfit.
Yes.
Is this picked by Barbara and the theme, or by the designer?
This is asked in the regulations of the competition that they leave behind, that they donate an outfit. It can either be replicated or they can just select which outfit they choose to leave behind.
Okay.
And at first, obviously, the designers have put all their heart into creating the collection, so it does feel like there is separation anxiety with leaving an outfit, but so many of them have said how grateful they are that it has come into a place where it can be preserved and showcased and cared for. Mm-hmm.
So everybody can actually apply. It doesn't matter if he's a student or older, or that some institution is behind him. Everybody actually with a huge potential of creativity can apply, right?
Yes, absolutely. There's no age limit, no.
So students,
you're welcome.
So thank you a lot. Thank you for your visit. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Great. So we came to the end of this interesting symposium named Clothing as an Art Object. I would like to thank you, the students, all the guest participants, for interesting presentations, interesting views, and describing why fashion is also an art. So I hope we will see soon with more ideas and with more knowledge on this subject. Thank you very much.